Hello everyone, it's Peter from the Australian Web Farm. I'm here in Millicent to do my Soil Food Web Institute training course. I'm going to do two courses this week and early next week. I'm going to be doing one using microscopes and one on soil biology. So I'm very excited to share with you what I learned from that, which you'll be able to see over the next few weeks. To be able to see more of that, subscribe to the channel just down here. It's the big red button, and also click the bell, the notification bell, and make sure you put it on the setting with the bell and then the two little dashes next to it, and that way you'll get all the notifications as we go live. So today we're going to talk about worm bedding. It's very important to get this right because it will have a big impact on the quality of castings you produce, and also on worm reproduction rates, and also if you're making worm liquids, it's very important as well. So as a starting point, it's what we're doing with the worm farm is we're basically trying to replicate the natural soil environment that worms live in. So remember, you have your anisic worms in that really bottom layer, which burrow down and live well down. You have your earthworms in the middle layer, and then compost worms in the leaf litter layer at the top. So if we think about that layer, you have a lot of moisture, you have manure, you have leaf litter, you have twigs and branches and a whole range of things like that. That's sort of what we're trying to replicate in our worm farm. So if we think about what compost worms need for a good bedding environment, they need air because they only breathe through the skin on their on the outside of their bodies, so they need to have a certain amount of aeration. That's why I'm very big on not flooding your worm farm too much, because if you do put too much moisture in your worm farm, it reduces the number of air gaps for the worms to move into, which reduces how much they can breathe the air, and it has an impact on your worm population that isn't good. So you want something that is able to absorb that moisture, not get waterlogged, and also still provide that aeration. And that's why a lot of worm farmers use coconut coir. I have a block of it here. So if you can see that it's made from the coconut fibers, which have a outside husk of a coconut. What they do is they harvest the copra, which is the internal meat, I suppose, of the coconut, and also the milk. And then they're left with this husk on the outside, and what they do is they crush that down and they mash it up, and they can do it to different sizes. So you can find coarse coconut fiber, it's very chunky stuff. It's often used in the hydroponics, tomato growing, that sort of thing. You can get these long white bags with that, and then right down to really fine stuff. So the stuff we have is really very fine. It's the finest probably on the market, and that's because we're not using this as a food so much as a bedding. So we want plenty of air gaps between the coconut fibre to allow the worms to breathe in that air and to work through the farm. So when do we use the bedding? Well, we use it in that really early stage when you set up the worm farm. So you get your tray, you put your paper in there, and then you put the coconut fibre as the next thing. So we want to make it a really easy environment for the worms to work through. Remember, it's not a food. It's not a food supply for the worms. It is high carbon, but the main idea is to give them a starting point, and from there we want to build it out with food scraps, well balanced with the carbon and nitrogen ratios, so that they can create a really high quality casting. Be careful of using too much just paper or coir in your worm farm. Yes, the worms can make castings fairly quickly with it, actually a little bit deceptively quickly. This can go really dark really quickly, and it can look like you actually have the castings made already, but what's actually happened, some of it's turned into castings and some of it's just damp. So look for a really dark colour to be confident of it being castings. But the other reason that we don't use coir exclusively or newspaper as a food supply is because it doesn't help with creating a wide range of bacteria, microbes, fungi that we're going for. What you want to do is supply a variety of foods for the compost worms to break down so that you get a variety of bacteria, fungi, microbes from your worm farm. So you want to go for the biggest possible variety, not necessarily concentration, because as you've seen with the worm tea and worm extract videos, we can actually multiply the quantities of each strain. We want to go for the widest possible range because those microbes can give us access to the widest possible array of nutrients through the castings or through the different liquids. So with your coir, how do we identify the right coir for a worm farm? So as I said, fine is quite good. There are two key things to be aware of. The first of those is there's often a high salt content in standard coir, so garden coirs and those sorts of things. The issue with salt is it's not a good environment for the worms. You can get away with it with different veggie growing, but for worms, you want to wash that out. If you do have salty garden coir or you get those blocks, you need to wash them 3 or 4 times. So put the coir into your bucket of water, let it turn into the really fluffy material it does, and then rinse off the water, decant that off, do it again, add some more water, decant that off, and probably a 3rd or 4th time, and you can be confident you've properly washed it out. You can actually buy coir that's been pre-washed, and the coir that we sell is. So you look for washed coir. And the other second thing to look out for is around the pH of the coir. So pH is how acidic or basic alkaline something is. You want a pH that's fairly neutral, so 6 or 7 for your worms, because we want to create an environment that's perfect for them and that is the way they would find it naturally in that forest floor environment. So a pH of 6 to 7, the word to look for on the advertising is the word buffered, and that's a word to describe how they've basically neutralized the coir to make it perfect for your worm's environment. So we do sell that coir, we call it washed and buffered worm coir. We actually use it in the worm castle boxes. So you can, if you buy a worm castle, you actually get a small block, just like this. It comes with the box, and we do sell the bigger ones as well. And sometimes you can find really big ones, which are 4.5 kilos, about this big, which make about 60 litres. We do sell those as well. And we always go for that fine, washed and buffered coir that's just perfect for growing your compost worms. I hope this has helped. When you're in the shops looking for coir, look for washed and buffered with a good pH. And if you've got any questions about coir, do post them below. I'll be very happy to help you out with that. If you would like to buy coir, I've put the link in the description down here as well. And if you have any further questions, do feel free to comment below, and I'd love to address them on the next video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much.